Good morning, the students of class 9. Today, we will begin with a new chapter Respiration in Plants, chapter number 7. Before starting the class, I would like to request you to kindly open your textbook because in this particular lesson, I have taken out the pictures from the textbook so it will be easier for you to follow the lesson. Clear? So be ready with your textbook. So, first of all, before discussing about respiration, we will try to clear our small doubt between respiration and breathing. That is, what is the difference between respiration and breathing? Now, breathing is a simple process where we are inhaling oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide. That means we are taking in oxygen. That oxygen goes to the lungs. In the lungs, we have got alveoli where there will be exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide. And after the exchange of gases, we are simply giving out carbon dioxide. That is called breathing. So, how is breathing or respiration different from breathing? Now, in respiration, there will be breakdown of food particles. Clear? There will be breakdown of food particles and there will be release of energy because in our ecosystem, in our planet Earth, clear, we have got different varieties of plants and animals, or we can say living organisms. Simply just think about the living organisms. Now, what do you think? What are the essential characteristics of a living organism? Or how can you say that a particular species is a living thing? Because there are certain characters, right, by which we can differentiate between the living and non-living things. So, what are the requirements of a living organisms? Clear. First important thing is cell. We have done in the first class cell, right? The structural and functional unit of life. And what are the other requirements? Simply, we, the human being, or any other living organisms, right? When you're talking about animals, we have got different types of metabolic activity. Even the plants also, they have got different types of metabolic activity which they have to perform in order to live. Similarly, animals, we human beings, we have to perform different metabolic activities in order to live. Clear? And therefore, to carry out all these metabolic activities, we require what? We require energy. We can simply say that, right? We require energy. We require food particles, and through the food, we will get energy. So, how are we able to get the energy from those food particles which we used to eat? Simple, because we need food, right? We need food for living, but those food which we are taking in, which we are eating, that food is the source of energy. Clear? So, by which process the energy will be released from the food particles that we are taking in? The name of the process is respiration. By the process of respiration, energy will be released from those food particles. Mainly, we can say glucose, a carbohydrate. Clear? So, in this chapter, we are going to learn about the process of respiration in plants. In general, we can say the process is same in case of plants and animals, but in our topic or in our syllabus, we have got respiration in plants, and respiration is a total cellular process. It takes place in the presence of cell. Clear? So, in this chapter, we are going to learn about respiration in plants, outline of the process, and gaseous exchange. Clear? And we also try to learn about the few important terms like glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Clear? So, before beginning the chapter, Let us go through the definition of respiration. What is respiration? Clear? In general, we can say that respiration is the process where the food particles will be broken down, all right, and energy will be released. It sounds to be very simple process where energy are being released by the oxidation and by the breakdown of food particles. But when we go in detail, all right, in higher classes, you will learn that respiration is a multi-step process. Clear? Where there will be release of energy. So let's begin. So what is respiration? Clear? So yes, you can see over here that all the living cells in a plant as well as those in the animal requires energy for various activities of the body. I have told you that in order to live, may it be plant or an animal, all right, we all the living organisms, they have to perform certain metabolic activities, and in order to perform those metabolic activities, what do we require? We require energy. Clear? Now energy is required for the formation of protein. Clear? And proteins are mainly formed from the amino acids, because amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So for the formation of protein, we require energy. Clear? Making starch from glucose also, there is need of energy. Absorbing minerals from the soil, all right, also require energy. Formation of cell wall in case of plant cells, it also requires energy. So all these metabolic activities require energy. Without energy, these activities cannot be performed. Are you getting it? So therefore, in order to carry out all the metabolic activities in the body of a living organism, energy is required. And from where does this energy will be provided from? This energy is available by the breakdown of glucose. Clear? The food particles that we are taking in, simply one of the component is glucose. So those glucose or those food substances which we are taking in, which we are eating, will be broken down during the process of respiration. And when those food particles, when those glucose molecules will be broken down, what will be released? Energy will be released. Clear? So the chemical breakdown of glucose occurs by utilizing oxygen and is represented by the following overall reaction. So before going to reactions, I will tell you that for the process of respiration, oxygen is required. Clear? So for the process of respiration, what is required? Oxygen is required. So let's check out the reactions of respiration. C6H12O6, which you can see over here. Clear? C6H12O6. That is the formula for glucose. 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 Clear? So glucose needs to be broken down during respiration for the formation of energy. But for respiration, what is required? Oxygen is required. Clear? And therefore, the process of respiration is totally dependent on the presence of enzymes. Without enzymes, this process cannot take place. Okay, so it is a totally enzyme dependent process. So in higher classes, in class 11, you will learn in detail about the name of those enzymes which are involved in respiration. But for now, just remember that respiration is a cellular process. It takes place in the presence of cells, inner cells, and is dependent on the presence of enzymes. Clear? So during respiration, glucose will be broken down in the presence of oxygen and by the help of enzyme to release carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And those energy which are released by the breakdown of glucose, by the breakdown of food particles, will be utilized to perform different metabolic activities by living organisms. We are able to show locomotion, right? And for that we require energy. So those energy are provided by the help of or by the process of respiration. We used to play, we used to run, right? We used to play in the school ground, we used to play football, we used to play cricket, and for all those things we require energy, and those energy are usually released by the process of respiration, where the glucose molecules, where the food particles that we take will be broken down by the presence of oxygen and by the help of the enzymes to release carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Hope it is clear for you. Okay, now there are three important characteristics of respiration in this equation. So let's see what are those characteristics. Clear? First one, look over here. First one is the breakdown of glucose to carbon dioxide and water does not occur in a single step. I'm telling you that respiration is not a single step process, it's a multi-step process. Now, when we are going through the reactions, we have seen that glucose will be broken down to carbon dioxide, water, and energy, but it's not a single step. Okay, we have got a series of chemical changes or a series of chemical steps that will lead to the formation of energy from the glucose molecule. All right, so the breakdown of glucose is not a single step process, but it requires a series of chemical steps, and two important steps are important over here. Now, what are those important two steps? First one is glycolysis. The first phase or the first step is glycolysis, and the second one is Krebs cycle. Okay, these are very important. So glycolysis and Krebs cycle are the two major phases or stages or the steps of respiration. Now, in the first phase, in glycolysis, okay, glucose will be broken down into pyruvate. Now, why I'm saying this thing? Because respiration is not a single step process. It requires a series of multiple steps. Clear? Till there will be formation of energy. So the first phase of respiration is glycolysis, where the glucose C6H12O6 will be broken down into pyruvate. Clear? And this particular phase occurs in cytoplasm. Remember carefully, all right? This particular phase, that is glycolysis, it occurs in cytoplasm of the cell, and in this phase glucose will be broken down into pyruvate. Clear? Now in the next phase, that is Krebs cycle, in the second phase, in the Krebs cycle, pyruvate will be broken down to carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Energy will be in the form of ATP. Now, what is the full form of ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. Clear? So, therefore, Krebs cycle, it occurs in mitochondria, and mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. Clear? So it is clear for you. So first important features of respiration in the provided equation is that respiration, where there will be formation of energy from glucose, is not a single step process, but it requires a series of chemical steps. The first phase is glycolysis, which occurs in cytoplasm of the cell, and in this phase glucose will be broken down into pyruvate. Clear? And in the second phase, that is Krebs cycle, which occurs in mitochondria, the pyruvate will be broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the form of ATP will be released. Always remember that energy in the body will be released in the form of adenosine triphosphate. Clear? First point I will clear for you. Second point, I told you that this process is dependent on enzyme. Clear? So in the second point or second feature is that each breakdown step is due to a particular enzyme. Now, since respiration involves a series of chemical steps, so each step is under the control of a particular enzyme. Without enzyme, this process does not take place. Clear? Third point, the third feature. The energy liberated in the breakdown of the glucose molecule is not all in the form of heat. One more time. That means the energy which are produced during respiration, alright, all of them are not all in the form of heat. That means they are not lost in the form of heat. All the energy will not be released in the form of heat, but a major portion of the energy which are produced during respiration, they will be in the form of a chemical energy called ATP, and the full form of ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Clear third point? That means all the energy which are released during respiration, they are not released in the form of heat, but majority of the major energy will be converted into a chemical energy form that is called ATP, and the full form of ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Clear? So over here you have to remember the chemical equation of respiration, that is C6H12O6 plus 6O2. In the presence of enzymes, glucose will be broken down into carbon dioxide 6CO2 plus 6H2O, water plus energy. This equation you have to remember. Next, remember about glycolysis and Krebs cycle, the two major phases of respiration. Glycolysis occurs in cytoplasm where glucose will be converted into pyruvate, and the second major phase is Krebs cycle where the pyruvate will be broken down to release carbon dioxide, water and energy in the form of ATP. Number two was that all these process involve the action of enzymes. And third one is that the energy which are released during respirations are not lost in the form of heat, but majority of the energy will be converted into a chemical energy in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. Clear? Okay, now so when energy is in the form of ATP, listen carefully, energy will in the form of ATP. Now whenever we are using energy, whenever we are playing, all right, we are using energy. So that means that energy we are using it in the form of ATP. So whenever we are utilizing energy, whenever we are doing any activities, whenever we are utilizing the energy, whenever we are using the ATP, that means those ATP are being converted into ADP. Now, what is ADP? ADP means adenosine diphosphate. So, one more time saying with that, energy will be in the form of ATP, and whenever we are performing any metabolic activities, clear? Whenever we are using energy that is in the form of ATP, then at that time ATP will be converted into ADP. That means our energy is going down. Clear? So whenever we are using the energy, our energy will be utilized, so our energy will usually decrease. Okay, so whenever the energy is being utilized to perform different metabolic activities, so those ATP will be converted into adenosine diphosphate, from ATP to ADP. Clear? And when more energy is available by the breakdown of glucose, okay, so when glucose is available and when more energy is available, again there will be reformation of ATP. So ADP will be again reconvert back into ATP. So when more energy is available by the further breakdown of glucose, then ADP is reconverted to ATP. Clear? That means whenever we are utilizing the energy ATP, it will convert into ADP. But when more energy will be provided or is produced by the breakdown of glucose, then again ADP will be reconverted back into ATP. So our body energy will be restored and will feel more energetic. Clear? So from 1 mole of glucose, how many ATP will be produced? This is very, very important question for you. Okay, so from 1 mole of glucose, how many ATP will be produced during respiration? So therefore, on complete oxidation of 1 mole of glucose, 38 molecules of ATP will be produced. Kindly note it down or mark in your book that whenever 1 mole of glucose will be completely oxidized, then 38 molecules of adenosine triphosphate will be released or will be produced. Clear? So kindly note this thing. Okay, so look over here, figure number 7.1. Now, breakdown of food glucose in respiration. So whenever glucose will be oxidized during respiration, what will be released? Carbon dioxide, water and energy will be released. So you can see over here, carbon dioxide, water and energy will be released. Now all the energy will not be lost in the form of heat, but majority of the energy, they will be stored in the form of ATP. Clear? So whenever we are performing any functions, whenever we are utilizing this ATP, then ATP will be converted into adenosine diphosphate. Remember carefully. Okay, energy used in work. So whenever we are using the energy to perform any metabolic activities, then ATP will be converted into ADP. And again, when more energy is available by the breakdown of glucose molecule, then again ADP in association with inorganic phosphate, okay, again it will form or it will reconvert back to ATP. So this is the simple diagrammatic representation to show the energy liberated in respiration. Hope it is clear for you. Clear? Okay, now next one. ATP is also called the energy currency of the cell. Kindly note this thing. Okay, ATP is also called the energy currency of the cell because all the energy in our body will be stored in the form of adenosine triphosphate. So kindly note it down. Okay, now all the living organisms, they show two types of metabolic activities. And what are the two types of metabolic activities? Look in a textbook. They are anabolic and catabolic process. Okay, so we have got anabolic process and we have got catabolic process. Now what is anabolic process? Anabolic process means constructive process or the process of synthesis where certain substances are being produced, which is also called biosynthetic process. So anabolic means it is a constructive process where certain substances are being produced or being synthesized. So over here energy will be consumed or energy will be stored, we can say. Okay, catabolic means destructive process where there will be breakdown of food particles and where there will be release of energy. Clear? So anabolic is a constructive process, whereas catabolic process means a destructive process where energy will be released. So what do you think? Is respiration a catabolic process or an anabolic process? So if you have gone through the definition of anabolic process and catabolic process, then you can easily say that respiration is a catabolic process. Why catabolic process? Because during respiration there will be breakdown of food particles. Food particles will be broken down during respiration and energy will be released. Okay, not only energy but carbon dioxide and water are also released. So what is the actual definition of respiration? So look over here. Respiration is a breaking down process, that is a catabolic process by which a living cell oxidizes organic substance, that is glucose, and releases carbon dioxide, water and energy. So in general term, in a simple term, we can say that respiration is a catabolic process where the food particles will be broken down. All right, food particles will be broken down and releases carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Clear? So respiration is a catabolic process of releasing energy from glucose for carrying out life processes. So in order to carry out different life processes, we require energy, and that energy is provided by the process of respiration. Okay, so briefly we'll try to recall what we have done. So we are dealing with respiration in plants. We have said that during respiration, food particles, that is glucose, will be broken down. All right, and carbon dioxide, water, and energy will be released. But this particular process is not a single step one, it's a major, or it involves major steps or multiple steps. The first steps is glycolysis, where the glucose will be changed into pyruvate. It occurs in cell cytoplasm. And the second major phase is Krebs cycle, that occurs in mitochondria, where the pyruvate will be broken down to release carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And energy will be stored in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. All the energy will not be released in the form of heat, but majority of the energy will be stored in the form of adenosine triphosphate. So whenever we are utilizing the energy, we are using the ATP, and when we are using the ATP, then that time ATP will be changed into ADP. And when there is again production of energy by the oxidation of food or the glucose, then again this ADP will change back to ATP. Clear? Then we have learned about the two types of metabolic activities, that is anabolic process and catabolic process. Anabolic process means the constructive process, for example photosynthesis, where there will be synthesis of food party or materials. And number two was catabolic process, which is called destructive process, where there will be breakdown of food particles. Example is respiration. Okay, so respiration is a catabolic process where there will be complete oxidation of food particle, that is glucose, and energy will be released in order to carry out different metabolic activities of a living organism. Clear? So this much for today in this class. In the next class we'll begin with respiration burning, then we'll just check out the few process, that is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So see you in next class. Thank you.